Hey, hey, welcome to episode 156. 156 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. It's a lot of questions. And I have to say, I love it. So today I'm going to start off with this. The bad news is so many of the world's problems seem insurmountable. The good news, however, is that humans are immensely skilled at solving problems. Hey, that is why I'm talking with you on a podcast instead of around a fire in a cave. But somewhere in this plentitude of problems, some of them get often overlooked and largely forgotten. For example, direct service workers who day in and day out empower people with disabilities to live their best lives are often chronically underworked and very much underpaid and underappreciated for the challenging work they do. This is a huge problem. Luckily, for great problems and even problems that are largely not thought about, there are amazing problem solvers. I'm excited to introduce one of those problem solvers to you. Back in a sec. Let me try. That didn't work. So I flicked my thumb to flick it on, and it didn't work. So then I told you that, which is now in the permanent record of this podcast. Before I put anything else I don't want in the permanent record of this podcast, here we go.
Today's guest, Rebecca Scherpelz.
Hey, welcome back. Let me tell you a little bit more about Rebecca. Rebecca is proud to be part of a team at Quillo. Rebecca is the Rebecca is proud to be part of a team. Rebecca is Chief Content Officer at Quillo. Quillo is an app built to inspire direct service people on a daily basis. This app not only helps direct service workers remember why they entered the field in the first place, but provides inspiration and tips to make the jobs easier and more enjoyable. As a content creator for Quillo, myself, I've had the good fortune to work with Rebecca firsthand. Not only is she excellent to work with, she has so many interesting and extraordinary aspects of her life, including a graduate degree focused on disability rights, international development, and nonprofit management. After growing up in the Midwest, she traveled the world, living and working in Africa, where she advocated for disability rights. Of world travel, she says journeys around the world to many amazing places have taught me the beauty of humility, complexity, and collaboration. Please help me welcome Rebecca.
Good
Hey,
afternoon.
welcome.
Hi
Welcome
there.
to our Goodly Awesome podcast, Rebecca.
It's such a delight to be here, Jason. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And sorry that bio was kind of jumbo. It didn't do justice to who you are, but luckily we have the whole rest of the hour to correct those omissions. So,
Not at all. Sometimes I feel like life is jumbled, so it's fitting. It's great.
um. First, I love to start off asking my guests about what they wanted. If I had asked you what you wanted to do when you grew up, when you were 7, what would a very young Rebecca have said?
It's fun to think about being 7. One of my nieces is currently 7, and the idea of like hanging out with 7-year-old me sounds kind of fun just because there's so much possibility and creativity and everything at that age. And when I was 7, I was pretty set that I was going to be either an author or a teacher. And I think that spoke directly to the influence of my parents. My parents were both in education, and my dad was in educational publishing for a long time. So being surrounded by books and writing and teachers and education and everything just was a spark at the time.
So, um, what did your dad do in the educational publishing world?
So he started, he really ran the gamut of the education, the publishing world from editing early on and then worked up through various publishing companies across the country and ended up as a VP of one based out of Boston. And so was just part of, the whole creation process of content and how we create curriculum and working with the authors and putting that whole world together. So definitely had an appreciation for what goes into a textbook, at so many different levels. So.
And it always amazes me, like I published a book, yeah. When I look at a book, it just seems so easy
Mhm.
that the book is that, but creating books and creating textbooks is not easy work.
Just all the roles and people and the expertise that has to go into creating content, but then also um, appreciating how kids learn and how people absorb information. And there's so many ways to do that, and trying to make a book as accessible to as many people as one time with all different types of learning can be challenging. So it's interesting to see how books and education and curriculum have changed over the years.
And what did your mom teach?
She taught primarily gifted education at an elementary school. So she was working with fourth, fifth, and sixth graders with kind of outside the box thinking and advanced math and whatnot for some of these younger kids. So she instilled just a lot of creativity and ideas that, all ideas can be great ideas, and help kids really run with that. So yeah, they were both just great at what they did, and are I think enjoying retirement now, but think fondly back on their respective careers. So
What was it? What was it like to grow up in a house of such parents who had such interesting careers and were considering and were doing very challenging things?
yeah, it was, there was a lot of talking and conversation and language in the house. I could also always, count on my dad to help like edit a high school paper and whatnot. So, definitely got some tips there. And I loved going into the classroom with my mom every summer, helping to set up her classroom for the coming year. For a while, the students were about my age, and so it was really fun to set up. I called it rainbowtizing her, like the construction paper and everything in her closets, and getting her desk organized from from the beginning. So yeah, I loved being in that school setting, and we were fortunate that she taught in the same school district that I attended. So our holidays and breaks all lined up, even though we were in a different school. So I never had her as a teacher directly, but I know it would have been fun.
And you grew up in Ohio, huh?
I did. Yeah, I grew up in a suburb outside of Columbus. So even though I was born in Illinois, I moved to Ohio as a baby. So that really was my hometown experience. And my parents and eldest brother and his wife are still in Ohio. So
So so what are a few memories you have from growing up in Ohio? I've never been.
yeah, yeah. So maybe it's because the leaves are starting to turn here and fall is on the mind. But I do love that Ohio in the Midwest has those distinct changing seasons, right? That there was definitely that turn to chill in the fall, and then snowy winters and hot summers. And so there's just little snippets of all things outdoors, and trick or treating, and a lot of bike rides. Lived in a cul-de-sac, or a neighborhood with a whole bunch of cul-de-sacs, and so a lot of bike rides, and playing capture the flag, like in and out of neighbors' yards. And we had very tolerant neighbors for like dozens of neighborhood kids running around. So a lot of time with the other kids. And I have two older brothers, so I'm the youngest. And so going up through school, I was always, the younger sister of, I was always the littlest Scherpelz. And with a unique last name like Scherpelz, like they knew who I was, they knew who I was related to. And fortunately, my brothers were and are just both great people. So I had good footsteps to follow there. So.
So there were 20 kids with your last name in your class?
Not at all. I joke that if you meet a Sherpels, I guarantee I've had dinner with them at some point. So there aren't many of us, but yeah, my extended family is all over the country. So pretty scattered. And so, vacations and whatnot were typically driving or going to see that extended family. And so it was a great way to see, the country all over the place kind of thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, Ohio really does feel like home, and we're all ahead for Christmas and everything this year. So, and I do have to give a shout out to, I grew up in Dublin, Ohio, and if you're ever driving through, we do have a field of cement corn that is 110 ears that are like 7 feet tall of just ears of cement corn as an homage to Dublin's agrarian roots, I guess. So it is as ridiculous and fun as it sounds.
Humans are so
I know.
amazingly creative, like, and willing to take on challenges, like, and we each seem to want unique challenges. If you told me, hey Jason, go create a field of cement corn, I'd be like, nope, I'm not doing that. But
Somebody decided it was worth tackling, and here we are. It's been up for a few decades now.
so speaking of taking on big challenges, you knew a life in Ohio. You knew a life in the suburbs. You had kids. You grew up with a community of kids. You was established. How did you come to want to travel internationally to Africa and Asia, to places of such different cultures? How did you come to want to embrace that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really in college when that sparked for me. After graduating high school in Ohio, I went to school in Indiana, and had an opportunity through the choir I was in to travel to South America, and we did some choral choir productions and everything in Argentina and Uruguay and Brazil. And that certainly sparked a lot just because there's just a lot out there to see, and traveling with music and culture and that sort of thing was a really fun way to see these countries. And then combining that with what I was studying, which was getting into anthropology and history and international studies, and just seeing the world kind of open up in front of me. It was an opportunity to go see it in person. And so some of the research and things that I was doing as a student was starting to steer me towards different regions, specifically Uganda, northern Uganda. And so that was among my first longer travel after graduation there. So it was just a spark of an opportunity to learn from others and experience the world, and a lot of privilege too, to have that opportunity to pack a bag and go.
So before your choir trip to South America, what was your perception of where you were going compared to once you were there? How, I guess a simpler way to ask is how did your perception of what South America was change once you were there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm thinking back to, I would have been, I think, a sophomore in college at that point, and that trip probably just kind of happened in preparation with the choir and everything. But with future travels, I try to learn a little bit about where I'm going in terms of the historic context and a little of the culture. But I also kind of got to a point where I didn't want to set up too many expectations or assumptions, because we'll see when I get there, right? I want to be prepared and informed without making a judgment or assumption about where I'm going, and then just soak it in once I get there. So it helps with, not overthinking too much, which I'm definitely guilty of often doing. So yeah, a lot of it, I didn't really know what to expect, and I was okay with that. I think that's part of travel, is the opportunity to feel a little lost, to feel that you're a guest and an outsider and new. And so I'm here to listen and learn and soak it in from there. But kind of, yeah, wait for the observations to form themselves as I'm there.
This is such an interesting thing, because often we go into an adventure, a challenge, either over prepared or under prepared. What are your ideas of preparing for something like finding the sweet spot of preparation before a big new thing, be it international travel or something else?
Yeah, I think by nature I've always kind of been a worrier. And so as somebody who worries, about 1 to 10 steps ahead, I'll often try to match that with, rather than worry about it, what can we try to plan for? Right. And it's like there's a fine line between planning and worrying in terms of preparing for something. Right. And so I think just sort of striking that balance of what can I actively prepare for mentally, emotionally, even physically, what do I need to pack to be ready for something? But it's also appreciating, if I forget, or run out of like soap, I can get it there, right? Like there's a lot
It's
of this
not
stuff.
like they don't have soap.
Exactly, right? It might be, it's definitely going to be different than maybe what I use at home, but I think finding that balance of, I'm prepared, I'm informed, I have, the passport, the essentials, but also let's, see how it's done there, and go from there, is also a way to go about it. So trying to strike a balance between worrying and preparing.
The line you said, there's a fine line between worrying and planning is just brilliant. It's so true, and it's so
Yeah.
life is complex, and
Yeah.
that's one of the complex questions.
Yeah, and
Like
sometimes you can be too prepared and overthink it and worry too much. And I think there's also something to be said for spontaneity and just being flexible within that plan. So sometimes easier said than done.
what are some of the ways you've been pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
during your international travels?
Um, it's hard not to like lump all experiences that or I don't want to lump all experiences into one because they all have been so unique. But I think there's such a common thread of humanity and joy and just opportunity to connect. So much of that, I think, for me, boils down to a love of language. I love soaking in other languages and absolutely appreciate how much of the world it's so super common to speak two, three, four languages, right? It's what you've grown up with, and all these multilingual individuals. And it's I think, a missed opportunity for a lot of people here in the States. Um, I grew up, I learned French in school, middle school and high school through college. Honestly, I signed up for French because I thought it sounded pretty, right? Never
Hmm.
thought that I would use it. And then,
Hmm.
fast forward to my mid 20s when I had an opportunity to work in West Africa, where there's a lot of French speaking people there. So I dusted off some very rusty French skills and was able to use that professionally, which again hadn't anticipated. And I think language is such an opportunity to appreciate that I'm new here, I'm a guest here, I'm here to learn. I like to learn a handful of phrases to get started, just to sort of acknowledge, an appreciation for I'm going to try, but I'm also like, with some grace to myself that, see how that goes. But and then beyond the language itself, just the role that culture and nonverbal communication plays in, taking a meal together or dancing or whatever it might be to like communication is more than just spoken words. And so I love seeing the different levels of communication that come out of interaction and just relating to people.
So when we go to a foreign country, say say we know a few phrases, it can be tempting to be very shy about
Yeah.
speaking because we don't really know the language. What tips do you have for encouraging the people you talk to, letting them know you want to learn and are excited to learn and all that?
Yeah, I part of that I think starts with a couple of those phrases that I'll try to learn ahead of time is just, a greeting, a thank you, and I'm sorry, and a by the way, I don't speak much of the language to sort of put that out there that I'm prepared to be vulnerable in this and to learn. If there is a shared language, let's, meet in the middle as best we can. But and then even if I'm in a space long enough, making an effort to learn a little bit more, probably not it's not an opportunity to become fully fluent, of course, but even just enough to kind of get around transportation or around a marketplace and everything. And sometimes folks will want to use the opportunity to practice their English with me. And so that's great too. It becomes an exchange of ideas and of information at that point.
So you're pretty soon out of college, and then you're learning to be a professional, but not just a professional in the U.S. a professional in Western Africa, what was that like? Like having that double learning to do, or
Mhm.
double or triple or quadruple
Yeah.
learning to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's again, not to paint a super broad brush with the places I've worked, but when I was in Eastern Africa, in Uganda, and then parts of Western Africa, and a little bit in India, um, they're they're different cultures, and there's different appreciations on what how a workday goes and everything. And so there was flexibility. There was in Uganda, usually every morning around 10 a.m. was tea time, right? So we'd pause for a cup of tea, and like that was lovely, right? It was a chance
Mm.
to touch base with coworkers. It was sort of the water cooler talk, that we have maybe here. So just appreciating the different expectations and sort of traditions of the workspace, and even just how the work gets done. We're so accustomed in the US that everything is plugged in all the time, and that you know internet is always up and running, and that wasn't always the case where I was, right? Power outages were common, and internet really was a luxury. And so you learned to how do we collaborate and keep something moving if the power's out? Well, let's move it outdoors and keep it going on paper, right? So just sort of having that flexibility. I was not on my time, I was on their time, and that was, again, I was a guest there, and wanted to learn and be respectful of that. So it was not trying to infuse like my way of doing things, because I was there. So
It sounds like you have a great humility about going to foreign places instead of saying, "Oh, I'm from Ohio. I I know the I know a Western way, and I'm going to teach you all the Western way to do things."
yeah, absolutely. I think both on a day-to-day interaction and learning and language, that was really key. But even more importantly, on the work itself, right? There are a lot of different perspectives, and even the role of international development is a complicated history, and where the U.S. is, by is a relatively wealthy nation compared to other spaces. It doesn't mean that we always have the best idea for a given issue or
Mm.
concern. And I think so much of it is learning to listen to the community where you are, because they're the ones who are living there every day, who have the experience. So, sharing expertise and ideas, but ultimately listening to the people who are to be supported. I think that's essential. I was working with a group in Niger on a gender and social inclusion team, where it was sitting and listening to the women about their experiences, and where are they actually going to work and to sell, and what are their needs. There really is not a one size fits all prescription for so many of these um, situations and issues to tackle, whether it's country by country or region by region. And so it really is listening, and not assuming that we have all the answers, because typically for a sustainable, long-term, and inclusive solution, it's a local one that might be infused with some outside ideas and maybe some outside dollars. But at the end of the day, it needs to be sustainable and managed, by that local organization, because they're the ones who are going to be living and implementing it down the road. So keeping it kind of, hands off too, with just that listening, is really important.
I guess if the local people don't buy into to a solution at all, it's not going to go anywhere,
A hundred
because
percent.
they're not going to want to invest their energy in it.
Absolutely. And I honestly, that parallel then to like working with the disability community, both internationally and here, it's the same principle of an idea that works for the person, for that individual, something that they're excited about, that they're behind, and that they can sustain, rather than coming in with like one size fits all prescription.
I, I, we don't want to paint with a broad brush, but is the experience of having a disability different in different countries around the world from your experience?
Yeah, I guess that'll be a gray area yes and no answer. And I also, speak as somebody who does not experience disability, that at least the observation, unfortunately, it is common that the disability community is often among the marginalized and more impoverished groups in any country that I've traveled to.
Mm.
But on the flip side, I think it's also a common theme of innovation and collaboration in terms of coming up with these experiences and solutions. Just one example, the organization that I worked with in northern Uganda was called the Gulu Disabled Persons Union. And this was a union of multiple disability organizations that all came together. So there was a collaboration among the deaf union, blind people who lost limbs due to landmines, as well as the intellectual disability group. They're all, and probably leaving some out too, they're working together kind of under one umbrella of disability broad label, even though so many interventions might be different for what one group needs compared to another. So there is a lot of collaboration. And even as recently as early 2020, when the whole world was faced with COVID, there was an effort among some Ugandan groups, a couple of women who were tailors and were learning, to sew, and were seamstresses and everything. They shifted gears and started sewing masks and became a distributor for face masks
Oh.
in the country, and provided, these essential items that the whole world was scrambling to find. And they had a skill and they put it to use, and people saw this group as a resource, right? And I think that was an exciting time to shift to both face masks as well as soap, right? These essential items. I want to say the group is called Mama Cave in northern Uganda. So, there's a resilience to and a creativity to responding to things that I think we see in a lot of places.
You mentioned somewhere back in our conversation the joy you've felt in these different places around the world. I remember going to Nicaragua years ago and being surprised and delighted by the people often seem so joyful with their lives. And so could you speak just a little bit? We sometimes in Western culture we think that 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 a person needs all the things we have to feel joyful. Can you speak a little bit about your experience with these ideas?
Yeah, that's a great. I'm so glad you had that opportunity in Nicaragua. And coming back after one of my trips, it was really overwhelming to go into like a Target, because so
Mm.
much stuff. And why do I need 47 types of shampoo, right? Just like, let me just grab this one.
I
So
need
there was,
48 types.
well, there you go. So yeah, I do think there's in any culture, there is a joy in some simplicity, and not saying that these cultures are simple at all, but just in the, if you're not relying on 100 different channels to scroll through every night and stream and whatnot for entertainment, there's just there is joy to be found in so many spaces. Early on, during one of my stays in Uganda, I was living with actually at a convent with about a dozen East African nuns. I didn't grow up in a Catholic setting, but that was just lodging that was available while I was there. And it was just an incredible experience living with with these sisters, and most nights after dinner, it was a dance party in the kitchen. And so, we'd share dinner together and then have just dancing and joy, as we were kind of getting cleaned up and everything. So yeah, there's a lot of joy to be shared. And even for communities that have, been through a lot, civil war and conflict and whatnot, there's a gratitude for waking up,
Powerful. How do you think your experience with traveling internationally and working internationally informs the work you do now with
Yeah.
Quillo?
Yeah, that's, it's an appreciation that the world is big and complex, and also simple at the same time in terms of kind of what things boil down to and what drives people and motivates people, that sort of thing. I also think when it comes to that role of sitting back and listening, right, that while everybody has a story, I don't want to assume anybody's story or experience. I want to, listen to what they want to share, let them fill in the gaps, and also appreciate that, like, on any given day, you don't know what somebody's going through, right? And so whatever that impression was is not a full, snapshot of somebody's experience. And so I think that's that reminder of listening first and learning, and just facing all things from a perspective of how can I grow, how can we grow as a community and kind of do that together, is one that I've really enjoyed. So that storytelling side, working internationally now boils down to the Quillo side of things, where it is more focused on the US and on the domestic side. But that idea of what brings you joy, is a pretty universal question.
So, in my introduction to you, I did a good job of making my explanation of what Quillo does really very confusing. So will you please simplify
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
clarify?
Yeah, happy to. So Quillo has been around since 2017, and as Jason alluded to in the intro, it's an organization we started with the focus on direct support staff. It's a smartphone app that helps DSPs and folks feel connected to their work. We also have Quillo Connect, which is for people with disabilities themselves and their family members, all with this app, in your pocket that gives 60-second videos to kind of share with people what's possible. So for DSPs, it's reminders of why their work is so important to help supporting the independence and opportunities for people with IDD. And then for the Quillo Connect audience, it's showing snippets of what's possible. Maybe folks haven't thought about, going to live on their own or having a different job or getting married one day. And so we highlight stories and experiences and kind of in these little snippets, bring it back to folks to think about, have you thought about this? Maybe this is something that you want for your life, that helps folks kind of think for tomorrow. And so many people often find that they feel like their options are kind of in this box, and we're kind of poking holes in that box and saying, what else can we think about outside of there that could be an opportunity to learn or to try something new or to communicate in a new way, to learn about advocacy. So folks have this resource, again, in their pocket with all of these videos. And on the Quillo Connect side, it's also an opportunity to create your circles of support that you can connect with other people, invite, support systems and family members or a job coach to kind of come together and support an individual as they work towards their goal. So I didn't make that explanation any more concise, Jason. So.
It's so important though. I know I worked in this field for 10 years, and I suppose in any job is easy to kind of get into the day-to-day and the struggles and the dramas and the way we always do things, and then lose sight of the magnificent work that's actually being done, and that's awesome you poke holes in that.
Yeah, and it's with voices such as yours. So, you've had the chance. I think you've done 40 or 50 videos for Quillo, and these little 1 minute nuggets. It's an opportunity for folks to hear from people like you, and DSPs and family members and people with disabilities themselves talking about that experience. And so, yeah, I like to encourage folks to wonder, kind of, what if.
DSP is direct service person who works directly with someone who experiences a disability. But speaking of these videos, as your title is content what?
Chief Content Officer. So
So
in a
as
small
chief
company,
content
yeah.
officer, you're coaching people, content creators, to make 60-second videos. Is that an easy job?
Yes and no. So, I mean, and you've been behind the scenes on that too, of trying to get info down into 60 seconds. And we do this based on the concept of micro learning, right? That based on folks' attention spans and the need to hear something multiple times to really have it soak in, we stick to 60-second videos to kind of meet people where they're at. Not all topics fit in 60 seconds, and we absolutely appreciate that. And sometimes it's not the right fit, but with a 60-second video, it's the idea that what's the little, um, again, the amount that you can, like a little pocket-sized nugget that you can take with you, or even like a teaser to want to learn more, right? The videos are only 60 seconds, but then there's a description, and people can link to additional information. So it sort of becomes either a moment to settle into. I just need 60 seconds to kind of regroup and come back to, a moment to pause, or it's a springboard for more information. And so, for our the people who create content, yeah, there is some coaching on what are those little pocket-sized pieces that you want someone to kind of walk away with, knowing that it's opening up to a whole lot more underneath that.
Uh, these pocket-sized pieces fascinate me because it seems like often we can get overwhelmed thinking we have to spend hours trying to explain something, but sometimes it's just thinking, how can we distill it down to pocket-sized pieces so the people around us can micro-learn it in amounts that they find manageable. It's really a fascinating concept.
Yeah, it's, and folks are getting info from so many places right now, sometimes for better, for worse, that there's just a lot of information out there. And so, again, does the 1 minute, even just to sort of, we had one user who talked about Quillo, that she was packing her perspective lunch, was what she called it. That this one little minute was sort of her perspective lunch for the day, to help frame, well, how am I going through my day? How am I maybe managing a difficult situation, or preparing for something, or celebrating something awesome? Sort of, how's this shaping my perspective? So, while 60 seconds is short, it is incredible how it can be enough time to sort of take a few deep breaths, or to laugh when you didn't know you needed to, or to chew on something that you'll carry with you for the rest of the day. So, there's absolutely a time and place for longer form, and for topics, and for people to dig in deeper. But if even 60 seconds is enough to sort of shift a focus, then hopefully we've done our job there.
I'm dating myself a little bit here, but I'm thinking of the old radios and cars and how you would tune in a station, and if it was just a little bit off, that would be static.
Mhm.
So though maybe those 60 seconds sometimes help people tune into the channel they really want to listen to for the day.
I love that, and it's a great way to shape too that, some days I wanna listen to classical, some days I wanna listen to pop or something in between that, there's also content that hopefully meets folks where they're at, that it's something upbeat, that's there. If you need something more mellow, that's there as well, 'cause, you
Mm.
know, you don't know, again, what somebody's story is, where they're coming from, what they need for the day. So, trying to have a variety of stations for folks is a good way to put it.
I know you love being part of your team at Quillo. Would you would you please just celebrate being part of this magnificent team for a minute?
Absolutely. I can do that any day. We are a team of 6. We were a team of 7 before one of our originals retired, but I've got to, start with John, who was where this all started. John Dickerson is our founder and CEO, and just a visionary, long time in the
Mm.
IDD community and field, and just always thinking big. You give that man a whiteboard and a dry erase marker, and like we're off to the races at that point. So we have John as our visionary and leader. Mark is on our sales team, just helping to explain and express how exciting this can be for communities. Bryce keeps things running on the IT side and operations, making sure that we are responsive to folks and customer support. He took on a lot of the role of Sue, who was one of our founding members who recently retired, who again had this great eye for customers and also spoke as a mom and parent to an amazing woman with Down syndrome.
Mm.
Kisa works with me on the video production side of things and helps. She has hit export on so many videos and is our wizard behind the scenes with creating all this content and bringing it to life and responding to my wild ideas about, can we do something like this? And she'll make it happen.
So
Um,
Keisha does all the editing of the videos.
yeah. So we'll work together to record, and then Kisa will do the production side itself. And then
Which is huge.
yeah,
I'm saying that as someone who knows not much about video production, but greatly
yeah.
appreciates it.
Absolutely. She that's her background and experience, and also has, an art and photography eye for things as well. So she makes a lot of magic happen. So, and then last shout out to Cynthia, who works with our community development and working directly with customers, and again helping to expand like who we are as Quillo. So, and she is off celebrating her recent wedding. So congrats to
Mm.
Cynthia. So we are a small but mighty team. We all of us wear a lot of hats beyond just what our official titles are, but it's been an amazing going on 6-year journey now. So
Wow, only 6 years. Is it sometimes amazing to look back and think about how much you've accomplished?
absolutely, and yet just honestly how much the world has shifted in that 6 years. So
Oh yeah.
there's been a lot going on, but a tiny startup. Um, I'm really just proud to be part of it. It's been an amazing journey. A blank slate to build something is super exciting, and it can also be really scary because no one's done this before, and also no one has done this before. So trying to come up with and really feel this out. We are constantly, again, back to listening and learning. We want to hear from people about their experiences. We want folks with disabilities to help us create what's needed and be part of this journey and this story.
Um, to do all that you've done so far in your life and in your career, seems like it would take an enormous amount of confidence. So, I mean, both men and women around the world struggle with confidence, of course. But what specifically words of encouragement would you offer a woman who really desires to be more confident, but yet tries and just doesn't quite get where she wants to be in terms of confidence?
Yeah, that is something I continue to learn and, develop myself every day. I think so many, at least in our culture and society, it's really common for women to be expected to be small and to not take up a lot of space and to kind of be apologetic. And I I really, come around to learning take up space, right? Like,
Mm.
don't be rude. I'm not saying elbow your way in, but know that you deserve a spot at the table. And Jason, we've talked about both of our shared passions for practicing yoga, and I love where at the end of class during a shavasana, when the instructor says, "Take up space," right? Like on your mat, stretch out, and I think that's such a um, to feel that physically and then walk that, in your work or in your day to day, take up space because you deserve to be there. And I think related to that, don't apologize for taking up space, right? That I have started so many sentences with, "I'm sorry, I just have one more idea," or "I'm sorry, I have a question," right? Don't apologize for having questions. Don't apologize for having ideas. I'm not saying again to be rude or anything or not appreciate kindness, but to frame it in a way of, I deserve to be here and to share this idea and we're in this together, not coming at it, from that place of being required to be small. So I would just say to take up space and know that you deserve it.
What's a confident way to share an idea that you have instead of saying, I'm sorry I had this idea. Please listen to me. What else would be more empowering for a person to say?
Yeah, I think even just something as simple as cutting out the "I'm sorry." It's just "I have an idea," or "I have a question. I'd like to share that." Um, I forget where I read this, but even the role of apologizing in an email or something, I'll sometimes go back and be like, "I'm sorry this took me a while to reply." I've tried to shift that to "Thank you for your patience with my
Mm.
reply," because that's such a subtle, small thing, but it's also kind of putting the appreciation and appreciating the effort that the other person made to be patient, um, while also, you know, just acknowledging just sort of that slight shift in perspective. I think is a little one because it's I don't want to say I'm sorry in a way that makes the other person feel bad, but rather thanking them for their patience. Then you know they've contributed something positive to this. I'm appreciating that I was late in the reply or whatever it might be. So it's a bit of that mind shift too. So again, it's not at the expense of being rude or not taking accountability when an apology is needed, right? There are certainly times when you need to apologize, right? But when it's just a matter of responding to the day to day and kind of going through the motions, I think there's a lot for just being strong in that existence. There's a grace and humility even in that strength. So,
I love the idea of thanks for your patience because that also celebrates a skill they may be trying to cultivate.
yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, you're celebrating the other side rather than just trying to catch up.
This is probably a question for all of humanity at
Whew.
this juncture in history, maybe all junctures in history. But what are your thoughts on being both assertive and kind at the same time?
Of being what? Being what and kind?
Being as assertive.
Being assertive and kind? Yeah, I think they do coexist. I think, in being, assertive is a space of confidence and also appreciation for the other person's time, right? And kind of finding that balance of, um, if you find spaces to be assertive, then there's also times to be a listener and a follower, someone, to be on both sides. I think it allows for everybody to kind of play. And yeah, it can feel tricky to have that reflection between like listen as well as be assertive and whatnot. So it's a bit of a play there, but I think you can be a strong listener, right? And you can find that kindness in there too. So there's a way to be confident in who you are and confident in your kindness too.
Confident in your kindness. And I love what you're saying about assertiveness and listening and kindness can coexist. Sometimes I think we think, oh, I'll be assertive for an hour and then listen for an hour and then be kind for an hour. But what about mixing all of those things into a conversation? So you
Yeah.
don't have to go out on any one limb.
Yeah, it's I because then you're also, prepared for I think yeah, there's a time and space for like being assertive, being at the table, and then a time for, whether it's one-on-one or in different settings. Again, like you mentioned with women having to navigate the different like gender roles and stereotypes and whatnot, and trying to spread our elbows a little bit with that, with what people are capable of. I think that also it all comes with a wish to see people as who they are, right? And I think there's a kindness in that and a goodness in wanting to really let people be who they are and try to know them how they are.
I this occurs to me while wrapping up, but it occurs to me that these skills and developing these things is so communal, like the fact that you've expressed confidence in different areas of your life gives you the capacity to talk about it now, which inspires other people to be confident, and then they'll spread it. And same with listening and assertiveness. So it's not like we're ever just assertive like for ourselves, and it just is um, something to it's not what I'm trying to say. Yes, part of it is by necessity self-centered, and there's goodness in being assertive and honoring ourselves, but also it's not just a self-centered act. It's an act that ripples out to support those around us.
100%, Jason. And it's I don't think to be assertive, it doesn't mean to be the loudest one in the room. It doesn't mean that, it's bombastic or that it's in your face, but it's I think you can again be kind of quietly assertive in a way that paves a space for yourself to have your ideas across, but also reaching out to others who maybe aren't totally up to the table, but getting there and getting room at the table, for that chair, that extra chair, whatever, to come in. I think there's ways to leverage feeling assertive in a way that is communal, right? That it's a way to reach out, invite, amplify, and really leverage experience, perspective, a megaphone, whatever it is, to share that, if I'm asking to take up space, I want space for everybody here too. That there is a community there.
If I'm asking to take up space, I want space for everyone here. And then you said the phrase quietly assertive. I wish we had another hour to just delve into that amazing phrase, and we do not. Last question. And I'm saying so I talked to audiences about what imperfect. Oh, what does imperfect best mean to you, Rebecca?
Oh goodness, your imperfect best. I mean, I learned that phrase from you, right? With some videos that you've done with Quillo, and I guess my imperfect best is, I think it's if I can reflect at the end of the day on how the previous, 24 hours went, bumps and bruises and all. Um, can I pick out something good that happened? Can I pick out something that was hard that maybe I learned from? Um, can I point to, something I did for myself or for somebody else that maybe made their day better? And is there, how can I grow tomorrow? If there's a sense of even ticking one of those boxes, because days are short, I guess that could be an imperfect best. Yeah, I'm one for notes and lists, and the lists get messier as as the day goes on, and that's okay. I think it's an opportunity to I, I don't know. I don't think we're ever as a perfectionist, right? I think there's a lot of that joy in the bumps and bruises along the way and appreciating that I'll never get to perfection. So let's just see what tomorrow brings.
What a mantra! The lists get busier as the day goes on, and that's okay. What a mantra! Thanks so much for this conversation, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. It's been great.
Well, it's we are so lucky to be human. Well, we're so lucky to be able to have conversations with each other, to tell stories, to consider new ideas, to challenge each other's perspectives, to invite each other to grow. We are so lucky. I feel so lucky to have been able to talk to Rebecca for the last hour, and I hope as you've listened, you've gotten things for yourself, things that will inspire you, however they inspire you to do whatever with. To take new actions possibly, but also hopefully maybe have new conversations with those around you, and to become maybe just a little more curious. I'm always trying to grow in my curiosity for life. There's so much to be curious about. Thanks for tuning into Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman. Tune in for another episode next Wednesday. Take care. Have an amazing day.